Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with another Raw review. Alright, today's Raw was not too bad, actually. I mean, there were some things that actually kind of brought the show down that just didn't make any sense to me, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So, let's stop wasting time and get with the program. All right, we first have Roman Reigns coming out. Well, actually, Roman Reigns is with Adam Pearce, and they're talking, and Seth Rollins comes out, and Seth Rollins will tell Roman to move out of the way, and then Seth starts heading to the ring. Then as Seth goes to the ring, then out comes Braun Breaker, and Braun Breaker absolutely destroys Seth Rollins. I mean, he beat him from pillow to post. He destroyed Seth Rollins. I thought he killed him at first, but no. And then after the thrashing of Seth Rollins from Braun Breaker, we get Liv Morgan, you know, and I guess the question that she's asking about, Finn Balor, you know, um, that they're finished with him right now. And there's no room for Finn Balor, in the Judgment Day and stuff like that. And then Liv asks Roxanne, why was he there? And Roxanne said, she doesn't know why he was there. Basically he was just there. And she told him, that she was, still down with the judgment day. Then Liv made Roxanne promise to her, you know, um, that she won't keep any secrets between herself and the judgment day. And then Roxanne says that she, promises to keep, no secrets, from them. And then we get the match with Finn Balor and JD McDonough. Actually, the match was it was pretty decent. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't probably the best match of the night. I mean, really, there weren't any matches tonight that were the best match, but this one was okay and stuff. But as you know, the Judgment Day, Dom, he's gonna interfere and stuff. So he kept interfering into the match and everything. And as the match kept progressing, then out comes Roxanne Perez. She came out to the ring. And actually, when she stood, she was standing there in the corner where Finn Balor would be. And then after she comes out, then Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, they come out right behind Roxanne. And so JD McDonough hits Finn Balor with the Spanish Fly. Finn Balor kicks out of the Spanish Fly. And then Dom, as Finn Balor gets a little bit back on top of JD McDonough, Dom gets caught because JD throws Finn Balor out of the ring, and Dom gets caught, with his hands on Finn, and the referee, you know, um, kicks him from ringside. And then as he's leaving, Liv Morgan, she gets on the ring. She gets on the ring apron. And she starts arguing with the referee and stuff, and then she takes this hammer that she has, which I guess it was the ring announcer's hammer, and she throws it over to Roxanne. And then Roxanne goes around the side of the ring, and as Finn Balor was out of the ring, he was coming. Well, actually, he was coming out of the ring to do something, and then Roxanne Perez hits Finn Balor in the stomach, falls into the ring. JD McDonough headbutts him. Finn falls, and JD McDonough gets on top and for the count 1, 2, 3 and wins the match. So I guess that hopefully ends that story. I don't know how that's gonna go and stuff. I mean, kind of get a little bit tired, of that. I mean, how long are we gonna get, Finn Balor with JD McDonough or Finn Balor with Dirty Dom? I guess ultimately something I don't know. I don't know where they're going at with this and stuff like that. But anyway, we'll find out sooner or later. But anyway, we keep going on. Then we have the Vision. You know, Logan Paul is pretty much still pissed off after the fact, you know, of what happened last week when Joe Hendry made the song about firing Logan Paul, you know, and then they're supposed to have a match tonight. But anyway, as he's bickering and bickering and bickering, Paul Heyman, comes in and tells him like, look, you're too mad to be fighting right now to fight Joe Hendry and stuff. He was going on and saying that, Von Breaker, almost got suspended for what he did to Seth Rollins tonight. Then he went on to say that, Brock Lesnar, you know, retired on him and stuff. So he has to take things kind of in a way, and things are kind of a little bit out of sorts right now. So he wants Logan Paul to calm down. And then he says that instead of him, wrestling Joe Hendry, it's going to be Austin Theory. And then Austin Theory is telling Logan Paul that when he gets in the match, that he's going to take care of Joe Hendry. He's going to hurt him, beat him up, and all this other stuff, and then win the match. But anyway, after that, then we get Penta and Jovan Evans going against Rusev and Ethan Page. This match right here, I'm gonna tell you right now, that Jovan Evans, he's a high flyer, man. He scares me sometimes when he's doing some of his wrestling moves and stuff like that. But anyway, before the match, Rusev tells Ethan Page that if he, crosses him, that he won't have to worry about anything because Rusev said that he will take him out, basically, and stuff, And so the match goes on. I mean, it was an okay match and everything. Ethan did his thing and stuff. Jovan and Penta did their thing. Hopefully, we don't get to see this all, for the next 8 weeks or whatever the case may be and stuff. I don't even know why Rusev is even actually doing anything here with Penta or even Jovan Evans. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, and especially how he's been, doing. He's winning, but we'll see. I don't know. Ethan Page, I think there's going to be other things. I'm sure he has to get away from Rusev. I don't even see this tag team going anywhere and stuff. Hopefully, Ethan does, peel away from him. I don't know how they're going to do that because how the setup is. It's looking kind of crazy, but anyway, um, Rusev and Ethan Page, they win that match and everything. There was some type of weird suplex that Ethan Page done on Penta, and he pinned Penta. So I guess that's kind of probably try to set up a match, for the Intercontinental title between Ethan Page and Penta. Maybe they're gonna put the IC title on Ethan Page. I don't know. Just have to wait, find out. But anyway, we get Adam Pearce, getting ready for the contract signing with Sol Ruka. Now Sol Ruka, I'm telling you, this girl, she's gonna do good. Sol Ruka, she was good in the NXT. I think they kept her down there a little bit long. She might should have been up on the main roster. I think last year and stuff. But anyway, Sol Ruka is saying that it's gonna feel good when she, finally now it feels good now finally that she's signing a contract to, to be on Raw. And as she's saying that, then out comes Becky, you know, saying to her everything that Becky usually saying that, you know, Sports Illustrated and all these magazines saying that she's the best who she is and stuff like that, and then actually asking who Soruka is and stuff like that, and Soruka basically tells her to basically shut up. She asks her if she's done talking, and then says she can understand why people say the things that they say about her and everything, and then she goes on and says that Becky is rude, and and then calls her a big-headed bee. And it's not just her saying it. She said it. Sports Illustrated saying it, and all the other magazines are saying it, and then everyone else is saying it. Then Becky gets pretty pissed off, and she goes to hit Soruka and ends up nailing Adam Pierce. And then Adam Pierce is kind of getting on her, and stuff like that. And then Soruka snatches Becky's soul and stuff. So I'm looking forward to what I'm seeing. And they never lined it up, never said anything of that if they're going to have a match for, Backlash or anything like that. But I think this is going to probably, they got to put a story behind it. So I think this match for that U.S. title is probably going to be at SummerSlam. We'll see Becky Lynch and Soruka. Then we got backstage, with Jackie asking the Usos, how they feel about, the contract signing and, you know, what Jacob's, doing and everything as far as the bloodline is concerned and stuff like that and the family. And then they say, no worries, they got Roman's back, if anything goes wrong, and stuff. So we'll leave it with that because the contract signing is later on during the show. Then we got the match with Joe Hendry and Austin Theory. You know, the match was actually going. I mean, it was pretty good. It was okay. It wasn't really too much of a bad match. And then all of a sudden, Logan Paul, he had to jump into the ring and he caused, a DQ and stuff. So Joe Henry wins the match by a DQ. But as that's happening, they attack Joe Henry. And then, like last week, out comes the Street Profit and everything. They come out, and destroy Logan Paul and Austin Theory. And then, as they're battling, out comes Braun Breaker, and he destroyed all three of them. You know, I mean, he Braun Breaker is something else. But he comes out and he takes out the Street Profits, and then he takes out Joe Henry. And then, as that's happening, out comes Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins attacks, Braun Breaker. And now they're fighting and brawling and brawling and brawling and brawling and brawling. And Seth Rollins is whooping the crap out of Braun Breaker. And then all of a sudden, Montez Ford, he leaps over the corner turnbuckle onto Austin Theory and Logan Paul. And as Seth is watching it, he turns around and gets speared by Braun Breaker. And Braun Breaker hit him so hard. I mean, and then he destroyed Seth with that. And then he tells Seth, he almost got him. He almost got him, but he didn't. So that match is going to be pretty good as far as backlash is coming. Seth and Braun Breaker. That ought to be a pretty good match and stuff. And then we get back with the Judgment Day. Um, Liv was talking about now that they're finished with Finn Balor, they can go on, and start winning gold. And her focus now is on Roxanne Perez and um, and Raquel Rodriguez, win the women's tag team title. And then out comes Bailey and Lara Valkyria and stuff, and basically Lara, Bailey asked, Liv, does a Judgment Day, do they, even fight? Um, do they always need to depend on each other and fight, and interfere in the matches and stuff like that, you know? And then Liv just basically tells her, look, we're family. Families stick together. We're gonna have each other's back and stuff. And then Lara, I guess, basically said that, hey, look, if they want to go for the gold, then fight them and stuff. So she issued out a challenge to Raquel and Roxanne, but they didn't answer to say if they were going to, accept the challenge or not. So I guess we'll find out next week or something. But anyway, we got Over Femi's Open Challenge, and the Over Femi's Open Challenge was kind of funny because at first I thought it was going to be Tasawa that comes out and wrestle Over Femi. He walked up to Over. He looked at Over, looked up, and turned around and walked out of the ring. And then Otis gets into the ring, you know, and Otis was really no match for Oba and stuff. Oba picked Otis up and threw him like a sack of potatoes, and then put him on his shoulders and gave him a fall from grace. And then Otis became another product of Oba Femi and stuff. So that was a little bit crazy. And then backstage, you got Seth Rollins and the Street Profit, and they basically kind of blame each other for what happened. Is um, during the debacle that they had during the match and stuff. I guess it's basically more or less was both their fault. I mean, Seth, he wasn't paying attention when Montez Ford jumped over the corner turnbuckle and stuff, and he lost the match. I mean, he got beat up. He got beat up. And they were both blaming each other for everything that happened. And stuff. Cause Braun Breaker, like I said, came and went through all of them. He went through all of them. So we'll see what happens here. I kind of think that they're going to probably try to get together and have a 6-man tag somewhere along the line. With Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, and Logan Paul against the Street Profit with maybe Joe Hendry or maybe Seth Rollins. I don't know. I'm sure that Seth Rollins wants Braun Breaker and stuff. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully that's going to be a good match at Backlash. It should be a real good one. And then we get the promo with Io Sky and Oscar, and then Oscar's basically, saying that, Io made her choice, and then Io saying that Oscar was, you know, I don't know, Oscar really, telling that she, is gonna beat her, that she looked up to her and stuff like that. I don't know. This was kind of crazy because they were speaking to Japan, and I'm just trying to figure it out and stuff. But basically, it wasn't really anything that they both said, you know. And down to the thing, Oscar said that she's gonna get EO, and EO is saying that she is now ready for Oscar. And then Oscar spits, the mist, in her face and stuff, so it blinded her. So that match, that Backlash is gonna be a pretty good one. I will be putting out a prediction video. And then we get the match with the original El Grande Americano and Julio and Julio. I can't remember what the other one is, but we all know both of them were the Creed brothers. And this match right here, was just dumb. I don't get it and everything. And they were going against, a Grande Americano, which we know is Luger Kaiser. And then we have Bravo and Rio and stuff. Okay, the original El Grande headbutts, I believe it was Bravo from the top rope, and they win the match. Okay, that makes sense out of that. And then we get the contract signing between Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu. Jacob's telling, I'm sorry, Roman is telling Jacob, you know, does he hear the fans, because the fans, saying, calling Roman, acknowledging him and everything, saying OTC, OTC, and then Roman is telling Jacob, that's the sound of respect and everything, you know, and then saying that he was the one that brought, Solo in and everything, and that, and if Solo brought him in, Jacob in, then that means Roman was saying that then he brought Jacob in and stuff. Um, and then basically Roman said that, he demands, his respect. You know, everybody gives him the respect. He respect, they need to give him respect, and the company gives him respect, saying that Jacob basically disrespected him by putting the Samoan death grip, on him. You know, um, and then he was saying that the death grip was only supposed to be used if and if something was actually happening, to protect somebody that was in the family. It was a secret thing, and that he wasn't supposed to use it, especially on, anybody in the bloodline or in the family and everything. And he said, especially on, the tribal chief. And then Jacob, stops him and tells him, saying that he, saying that his back is against the wall and he's going to take everything. He's going to take everything from Roman, starting with the title and everything and stuff. And I mean, it was a good. I mean, the segment was pretty good and stuff. And I basically think that they kind of. I don't know how this match is going to go because we're talking about a bloodline, you know. So when they do have this match, I'm hoping that that there's not going to be any interference and stuff like that. And then Jacob is basically telling him that it's it's all about him and getting what he wanted and what he needs and stuff. Is basically for his family and stuff and stuff like that. And then Solo says when he's talks about all gas no brakes, it don't mean he's gonna slow down. It means he's moving forward and he's never looking back, to where he came from and stuff like that. And then Roman tells him, you know, that he's desperate, you know, that he's willing to do. Then he tells Roman that he's desperate. He's willing to do anything, as far as his household is concerned, even if that means he has to run through the bloodline. And then Roman stops him and says, that then Roman signs the contract. He gets a little bit pissed off and he signs the contract when Jacob said that it doesn't matter. He'll go through the family, you know, to do what he's got to do and everything to take care of his family and stuff. And then Roman, says to Jacob that Jacob was talking about a household, saying Roman saying he's been doing what he's been doing for multiple households, you know, telling Jacob, he's worried about 7 kids. And then Roman tells him that he's worried about 170 kids, that fill their family. Then tells Jacob that, um, he's worried about higher education. And then he says to Jacob and he tells him, you know, he's worried about generations after generations of higher education because Roman, is trying to put the bloodline and stuff, on top. He's trying to look out for them and stuff. And I guess he thinks that Jacob, is trying, is forgetting, that he is a part of that family and stuff, and Roman is saying that, he's the proof of concept, you know, he's got the respect and this is his company, you know, and that the company wants to do business with him. And we're talking about Roman Reigns. This says he told Brock Lesnar that this is all his, saying Roman Reigns told Brock that everything now belongs to Roman Reigns. You know, that this is Roman then starts saying that this is his ring, you know, and basically the family. He said that they're family, that they're equals, and that they're of the same bloodline. Then tells Jacob, um, that I can't believe Roman even said that. he went to Jacob's face and he told Jacob that, hey, you're beneath me. And I think when Jacob heard them words, he flipped. That switch went off, and then he started attacking Roman, trying to get him in that Samoan death grip, and then Roman kind of fought out of it and everything, and then Jacob kind of got it on him again, and then Roman kind of fought out of it, and then Jacob got it locked in. And then I'm looking for the Usos to come out because they said if anything goes wrong, that they were going to come out, and help Roman. But at this time, Jacob then already picked up Roman and put him through, the table and stuff. Then he, started throwing things around looking for the contract. And then Jacob finally signs the contract and everything. And he leaves Roman lying again, struggling for air and stuff. So that should be a pretty good, match for Backlash. I mean, like I said, Raw tonight wasn't too bad. It wasn't great. It wasn't too bad. So I just give it mid and everything. Out of a 10, because Ruka had such a good promo, I believe, and then the Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns promo, it was pretty decent and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and 5 out of 10. So that's mid, and we're just gonna leave it there and keep it there and stuff. So please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a message. Let me know, leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling. If you agree or disagree of anything, like I said, I'm a year into the making videos now and doing this. I'm learning more. Hopefully I can get better at what I'm doing and stuff. But then again, please don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe, and leave and drop a comment. All right, from there, thank you for watching. God bless, deuces, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.